Hello and welcome to Building the Premier Accounting Firm. I'm your host, Roger Knecht, president of Universal Accounting Center. And each and every week we have on the show various guests to actually share with us insights as it relates to working on our businesses, various things that we can be doing to ensure that we're actually taking care of our clients, offering quality accounting services, and getting paid what we're worth. Here at the show, we're actually wanting to actually give you the information you're needing to build your business and ultimately have what I refer to as the premier accounting firm in your area. Today, we actually have a great guest, someone I'm excited to have on the show. She coincidentally actually just spoke at one of our conferences, GrowCon. She is Heather Hurst. She is the Vice President of Marketing for Canopy and someone that I'm excited to speak with, partly because of the presentation she gave at the GrowCon conference, but also because of some interesting things that I think you're going to be excited to learn today. So Heather, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Great to be here.
This is going to be fun. So coincidentally, we had a previous conversation, so we've got some foundational things here, but let's just start with an introduction. Share with my audience exactly who you are, what it is, and more importantly, kind of what got you into the accounting space.
So my name's Heather Hurst. As Roger said, I'm the VP of Marketing at Canopy. We are a practice management solution provider for accounting firms.
Yep.
We've been building our software for about the last decade and have thousands of clients serving thousands of their clients as well. So
I love it. Now, from a marketing point of view, one of the things that you're familiar with, and you addressed this at the conference, is the concept of branding. So let's just start there and maybe get a little bit more information as it relates to how someone needs to brand, why they should brand. Give us an idea of what branding in general is.
So branding is one of those things that we hear about a lot, right? We hear you have a good brand, and sometimes people are talking about just your logo or big branding news. Brand news. Dr. Pepper just outpaced Pepsi as a brand in terms of sales. So people will think about it in terms of your entire product line. But ultimately, the way that I look at brand is the feeling and the trust and the connection that you have built with your audience. So that is the entirety of everything that you do. It's the way that you show up in your meetings. It's the products you provide. It's the external view on you, like your reviews and the way your website looks. Brand is everything that creates that innate feeling of trust, or in some cases, distrust in a brand.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I've seen brand in a variety of ways. In a smaller organization, smaller business, I've seen it as just like the personification of who you are, what you represent, what it is you offer. And it can be kind of like a dress code. It can be color schema. It could actually be just some of the nuances of the things you say and how you do it. And that's wonderful and everything. But you can get it at a much higher level where it's even a lot more robust. I remember hearing of a story where in QuickBooks, they actually had a box that was being produced for their software. This is the way I remember the story. And to illustrate the point of branding, they actually found that the color coding that was used for the color green as it related to QuickBooks, when it printed, wasn't their green. And they were frustrated that that dialog wasn't met. Therefore, they threw out the entire print, and all the boxes were not used because the color was slightly off. And so it's at some point that kind of meticulous, if you will. So I do feel that there are various levels of branding. At the early onset, I think it's just representing who you are. Are you casual in your dress? Are you professional in your dress? Do you have a color? I remember there's a salesperson, Dean Minuto. He actually has the color orange, as I recall, that he would use in everything that he has. And it's a distinct color orange. But clearly, when you see the color orange, you remember him. And more importantly, when you meet him, he has all these things, and it helps you remember him, right? So what would you say are some of the impactful things that we and maybe some smaller organizations need to consider as we brand our companies?
I think like all of those external factors, like the meeting that color green perfectly, and there's nothing more frustrating than a press check gone wrong.
Oh, yes.
I feel for that production artist. But wearing a certain color, so when you're at a convention, people recognize you. All of that amounts to the way that people feel when they interact with you. And I think what a lot of people in the accounting profession need to think about is, how do I create consistency in my interactions with my clients to the point where they always know what to expect and what they're going to get from me? How are my email interactions the same as my phone interactions? How can people know that when they work with my colleagues that if you're the head of the firm that you employ, or if you're peers to them, your peer that's covering for you while you're out of office. How do I know that they're going to have the same experience with that person that they have with me? How do you build that level of consistency so that your clients always know what they're going to get?
The best thing from what you just shared, in my opinion, is consistency. Consistency is the culmination of the brand. It's what they can expect as you're describing it. So
Yeah.
I love it. And when somebody might be overwhelmed is to say, what is my brand? Well, it's just basically, what can I consistently expect from you?
Absolutely. Like one of my colleagues has had this ongoing sprinkler problem in his yard since the beginning of winter. So for about the last 6 months, got a little delayed because snow was on the ground and couldn't get into the pipes. But as he talked to his neighbors, because he's new to the area, and asked, where do I go to get some sprinkler help? He said every single person said, you have to go to this one gentleman named Corby. He is the best. He will take care of you. No questions asked. And so, of course, he went to this gentleman who nobody said the way that he takes care of you. Nobody said, oh, he'll get you that 1/2-inch pipe perfectly. They said he will take care of all of your problems. And that is the most solid brand in the world.
I like that. Well, hopefully we can all kind of aspire for that kind of reputation of we can take care of anything and everything.
We will just take care of it. Bring him your problem. This, in the example of the sprinkler person, and you will have a beautiful lawn and no leaks in your house.
There you go. All right. So as it relates to branding, I want to kind of move to another area, which is when you're considering branding, I think one of the things that we also need to dive into then is marketing and how we actually get that messaging out there. Do you have any advice once we figure out who we are as to how we might be able to communicate that?
I think that the first thing that firms need to consider, and this usually is there, but not everybody has identified it, is finding that niche where you best serve a client base.
Okay.
And I've talked with different firms that have found different niches. I've found people who work only with the dental industry, or people who only work with gamers or with doctors or with people in e-commerce. The more specific you can get in the service you provide and who you provide it for, the easier that marketing is, because you can be way more targeted in your message and in where you market. So, for example, in the case of the firm that only markets to dentists, they may have some other clients that aren't dentists that came in through word of mouth, but they've found that's their niche where they get the best service and they give the best service and they know it the best. Well, so now you're going to market at dental trade shows. You're going to market on LinkedIn in groups that focus on the dental profession. You could buy lists and send out newsletters to dentists. And so the more that you can get specific in the kind of niche that you're going to serve, the more specific and the more directed you can be in your marketing and your marketing message. So instead of saying, I provide general, broad accounting services, and it's really hard to differentiate that, you say, we know everything about, we'll continue the example, the dental profession. We can take care of you when you buy new equipment. We will take care of you when you have whatever comes up in that space. And that really makes your marketing specific, and it will be so resonant when you're pitching your services to someone in that space.
Yeah, I appreciate when I asked marketing how you went into niching, because I think that's one of the things that a lot of people do ask about, because first of all, marketing is clearly the messaging that we're taking out to the community. It's how do we present who we are, what we do, and how someone might benefit from the services we offer. If we're clear as to who we are, who we service, and what they get, I think the messaging can resonate. But you can become so much more clear in that messaging if you can be specific as to whom you're speaking to. If you're more clear as to who your avatar is and who your potential client is, you're going to resonate with them a lot better, because you're going to use vocabulary that is meaningful to them. You're going to give situational things that are relevant to them. And all of a sudden, the marketing starts to say, okay, I see this person does accounting, bookkeeping, tax. I see you do accounting and bookkeeping, tax, but I see me in whom you're servicing because you're actually talking to me as a dentist, let's say.
Right.
That's, I see images of dentistry in your marketing. I see terminology that's relevant to me specifically. You're talking to me. And so the niching does actually help when you're taking the brand, developing the messaging, and going to market. So very good.
It's such a foundation because I think the first place people go when they build their marketing messaging is they talk about themselves. What do? I provide X, Y, and Z services. But what they need to consider around that message is what impact do I have on my potential client or my current clients? And that makes a huge difference in the way you present your message. A fun example of this, and you can find some really great videos on YouTube, is around 2008, 2009, Domino's Pizza was just headed toward financial ruin. They had hit a high. Their IPO of their stock a few years prior was at $30. They were at $3.
Oh, no.
They start digging in. They do consumer taste tests, and they realize everybody hates everything about their pizza. Like there was nothing that people liked. So the way that they built the ad campaign coming out of that. So first they reformulated everything. They reformulated the crust, the sauce. They found different cheese. But as they brought that message to market to say, we have a new product, the way they did it was they identified some of the people who had been in that taste test study, and they showed up on their doorstep and said, you said this in your taste test. And they read off back to the person what they said. One person said, it's the most disgusting pizza I've ever eaten.
Ouch.
So they brought this pizza back to this woman and said, will you please try the new one? She loved it. She said, and this is their ad campaign, how much better it was, how much it compared, it was head and shoulders above where they'd been with their former pizza. But they really thought about, let's bring the consumer into this message and let's have them tell the world that this is so much better than it used to be.
Wow, that's interesting. I didn't know that story, so that was quite interesting.
Yeah, the ads are really fun to go find on YouTube.
I've not even, I must not have been watching television back then because I don't remember any of that. Well, I think what your point is very relevant it's first of all embracing feedback. The feedback that we get is relevant. And I just had this conversation with one of my colleagues just yesterday. We had gotten some feedback and his comment was, well, this is one of 10,000 people that have gone through whatever it was we were discussing. And although true, I mean, it was clearly a minor blip on the screen.
Right.
I did say back to him, but this is feedback. And anytime we get feedback, we need to be listening and seeing what it is we can do to address the situation because there's always room for improvement. And so it may not be urgent in the sense that we've got an error where nobody can access something and we've got a critical problem going on. So I get that it's not urgent, but it is still relevant. And it is something that we need to, as a business, consider because I do believe in the statement that for every one complaint, there's 10 other individuals that feel the same way. They're just not vocalizing it yet. And so thank you to the one who said something. I'm always grateful for feedback. I've actually recently gotten some really critical feedback. And it's important to be able to stand there and not try and justify it, not try and explain it away, but simply take it for what it is. This person is trying to be open with you. And let's just, calm down and just take it as is. And I think if you recognize that this is an area for improvement, it's then realizing, okay, how could I have done this differently or better? So that's important to me.
Right. Feedback is such a gift. And if you can look at it through that lens, it's the way that we all change and get so much better. Yeah. And think about Domino's. I promise you, before they actually went out and did their taste tests, they were hearing from consumers that they didn't like their product.
Yeah.
It was reflected in their stock price. It was reflected in their sales metrics. But they chose to do potentially what this person you were talking to was considering and said, it's one person. We don't need to worry about it. It's a problem for another day. And then one day the problem was really, really significant. And just think if they had a few years prior said, well, what if we start tweaking a few things? And rather than it being this mad dash of
Yes.
survival, it becomes, I'm getting a little bit better every day. And I think in the accounting profession, people are very open about providing their feedback. You gave me amazing service, or I wish you had replied to me sooner, or I can't ever find something, or it's hard to get information to you, or whatever the feedback may be.
Yeah.
I think you can look at that through two lenses. The first is I can change and I can be better. And a lot of times it's one tiny little tweak, right? It's not redoing all of your processes. But then if you go back and tell the person that you made a change based on their feedback, that is huge from a loyalty standpoint. When they recognize that you listen to them, amazing way for you to get through with an additional point of client retention.
Very interesting. Yeah, good. Now, I want to go back to something you were saying about marketing, because I think for my audience, this would be something that they would appreciate to understand. It's oftentimes referred to as selling the sizzle, not the steak. And it's basically the fixation that in accounting, we oftentimes focus on the features, what it is we do, the services we provide. And it's more of a, let me pound on my chest and say, here's what I'm doing for you, versus here are the things that you get from my services. Because the client isn't so particular about what we do. In fact, they may not even understand what we do.
Right.
What they're more inclined to realize is, I have a problem, I have a need, I want you to tell me that we're going to solve that. For example, people don't buy drill bits. They buy a hole.
Right.
I'm trying to buy a hole, and to get the hole, I need the drill bit. So yeah, the bit's nice, and you can sell me on the fact that it's going to cut through a certain material or something else. I mean, there are qualities that I might be interested in, but at the end of the day, I'm not trying to buy a bit. I'm trying to buy a hole.
Right.
So at the accounting level, what I'm trying to say is, we're trying to say, okay, we're going to give you the information to more intelligently run your business. We're going to give you the information you need to be compliant. We're going to give you the information you need to file your return in a timely manner and not, draw a suspect to yourself. We're going to ensure that you have money in the bank. We're going to help with cash flow. We're going to actually help so that you can, let's say, improve your profits. We're going to give you the information you need to legally lower your tax liability. It's the takeaways that they're ultimately looking for. So I think it's important from a marketing perspective to kind of assess in our messaging, what's the weight? I mean, there's an appropriate level of here's what we do, but there's a greater need for, and here's what you get from our experience.
Absolutely. And that can be so hard to identify because it's so easy to list off what you do. But to your point, not everybody understands the impact of that. Not everybody understands why what you do is the thing that I need. And so expressing the outcomes is really, really big. Like I remember at the GrowCon conference, you were celebrating your CFO at Universal Accounting. And one of the things that you said was, correct me on the number of days. I think it was you have a 5-day close every month.
Yes.
That is the outcome, right? We have a 5-day close. This is something we've always wanted. This is a big, big thing for us as a business. That's what you sell, not this person has these skill sets, right? Like the outcome is so important. And I know a lot of people this can kind of trip them up a little bit to think about, how do I position myself more in terms of an outcome? How do I sell the hole and not the drill bit? The best place to go is to your user reviews. And most people will have online reviews, either, Google reviews or whatever is big in your market. And start reading through those from the point of view of, what did I do to help this person? You can even just ask your clients, why do you like working with me? Is it that all of the things that you listed, that I'm helping you with planning for the future? Is it that you never have to check the bank balance because you know it's always perfect? Is it right? Like, do you know I'm always in a compliant zone for my industry? Those are the things, as you talk to clients, either through reviews or talking to them in person, they'll all start to bubble up, and it'll make creating that messaging so much easier, because it's such a mind shift to talk in terms of outcomes instead of this is what I do.
Yeah. Well, as it relates to accounting, this is how I see it's relevant. And I'm going to go to an extreme to make my point. there's a lot of people who in the accounting world are fine meeting with their client once a year to prepare the financials so that they can file their tax return. And for the business owner, that may be an ignorant way of running their business, but it's one that they're familiar with. They don't see value in getting the financial reports any more than the once a year. How did I do? I've got the numbers to give to my tax person. I'm good to go. But how unfortunate it is that we as an accounting profession can't educate that business owner, help them realize the value in getting the financial reports on a more timely basis, monthly basis, quarterly basis,
Right.
to make more informed business decisions. Right now, they're running a company, and to their knowledge, as long as I've got money in the bank, they may be fine. And they're just running the business presuming that the reason why accounting is done is simply to file a tax return.
Right.
And how unfortunate that is. That's not how businesses should be run, but it's, I think, a failing on the business or on the accounting profession side to not be able to clearly communicate how we service the business owner to help them be more profitable, more successful, if they just would let us work with them on a more regular basis, monthly, quarterly, and so forth. And so that's a failing that the business owner just isn't educated enough to realize our value. And so we're not a liability to their business that they pay a fee simply to file the tax return and pay taxes. We're an asset to their success, and we're able to inform them on things that they need to know now to
Right.
be a better business owner. So that's something that I think would be very helpful to the accounting profession to say, here's my opportunity to really prove my worth. And that's something that in messaging can be very valuable, right?
Absolutely. Well, and the thing that's a shame about what you're talking about is the accountant or the bookkeeper has all of the data to make their case to their client. And as we're seeing this evolution of advisory services and moving from the idea of paying for a single service or paying by the hour for services, we're moving more toward billing on a retainer basis where you get something from me, so much of my time, so much of my attention on a monthly or quarterly basis. It's so much more profitable. And the accountant has the information to make that case, to say, you bought all of your equipment, you should be renting it so that we can write that off in a different way, if that's something that would be beneficial for the business owner. Or I'm looking at the way that you're doing something and you have substantial profits. We should be investing those in another way so that we see money coming back into the business. Whatever the case may be, you have the data to go and sell those kinds of advisory services.
Or if we don't have the data because the business owner holds it until the very end of the year, we can make a case as to why we want it rather than having this lump package come to us. We can say, why don't we do this on a month-to-month basis so I'm not overwhelmed trying to catch things up before year end. We're able to make some cases here if we can just actually articulate well the value of our services, which I don't think we're doing well enough doing.
Well, and it's such an opportunity because in spite of what Hollywood would have us believe, people don't like surprises.
Yes.
So the more that you can show them, when I did your year-end taxes and we had some surprises, you can say, if we could consult on this regularly together, not only will we not have that negative surprise, but we can take things in such a more positive direction. Yes. I can help you decide how to expand your business. I can help you decide how to lease or buy or whatever your equipment. Whatever the case may be, especially, again, going back to niche, if you're an expert in a particular field of business, you can provide invaluable services that people may not know they need, but they know what that pain is when they feel it.
Yeah, what I'm hearing from that is the fact that we can, as an accounting profession, be more proactive than reactive.
Absolutely.
Get out of the historical and get more involved with the future. Yeah, I like that. I'm going to switch the gears on us a little bit here. One of the things I want to talk about, and I'm interested from a Canopy point of view, is there's always a lot of talk now about AI. And there's an opinion I have that with its launch just recently, there was obviously a value in learning prompts and how to communicate and interact with the AI. But it was a heavy lift to expect that each of us would become programmers, that we knew how to properly prompt the AI to get the responses we were hoping for. And I knew this would be the evolution, but it eventually got to the point that the places that we naturally already go, are going to integrate into them AI. And using these various platforms, we would, as the end user, start to have these interactions with AI through what we were already familiar with. How is Canopy integrating AI into the experience, and what's that looking like from your perspective?
You are so spot on, Roger, with prompts are extremely difficult to learn. Not extremely. You can get in a good
communication
group,
style.
but it's yet another thing to have to learn.
Yes.
And at Canopy, we have completely recognized that people want it built into the software. So
Yes.
the first place that we started was with our email communication. So we have email built into Canopy that connects with your email account. So you can send emails and communications to your clients. And we integrated AI into the emails so that you can just write a little summary of what you want an email to say, and in what kind of tone, style you would like it written in. And the AI will write a message that you can keep telling the AI to redo it. You can change that from, I'd like it to be laid back, or I'd like it to be very serious and professional.
Abrasive,
pushy. I'm not sure that we have that option, but we should.
Convincing.
Exactly.
Compelling.
Curt and to the point. Exactly.
There you go. Curt and to the point.
You can read it and make changes to it before it goes out, but it's taking away the blank page. It's taking away you having to start from scratch. And it's giving you usually, especially in the case of an email, if you're just saying, send me a thing by this day to this address, it's taking out the headache of having to write. The other thing that we've done, and we have quite a substantial roadmap of more things that are coming, but inside of our reporting feature, so reporting is yet another ball of wax where you kind of have to learn a little bit of BI to run reports effectively, because we have this very, very robust reporting solution. Mm-hmm. And then if you have AI as part of it, you kind of have to learn how to prompt it on top of that. So what our solution has is natural language processing as part of the application. So you can say, run a report of hours worked from this time to that time, and it will build all of the thought, all of the programming behind it that will spit out reports for you. So instead of having to be a reporting expert who knows how to create specific reports based on the specific data set, you can just tell it what you want, and the system will give that back to you. And then from there, you can always tweak it. So if you said, build a report for me of number of hours worked and you forgot a period of time, and it gives you all the period of time that there's recorded data for, then you can go back and say, oh no, just for this month.
Yes.
Sorry, forgot that. So you can go tweak it and change it, but it gives you that ability to just talk to it like a person, and it will then spit out the logic that you needed. So it's making AI so much easier to just have it where you're already working, and it's already trained for those use cases and the kind of work that you're doing, as opposed to it being just a blank slate.
Yeah. The thing that I'm really appreciating, well, there's multiple things that I'm appreciating from this. First of all, what we're describing here isn't the replacement of any one individual or a position. Right. This is an assistant. This is enabling us to do our jobs more efficiently and more effectively, I believe. Mm-hmm. The second thing that I'd also point out is with your prompt, just going back to the email, I think it helps us do our jobs better. I'll give you an example. I'm very much of the opinion that too often in text or in email, the tone is misread, meaning people presume people are more upset or friendly, or they're always just misinterpreted because there's so many ways that someone may choose to read the text or the email. So I have found with a service called Grammarly that it's very helpful to assess, okay, this was this kind of a tone. You tend to be polite. You tend to be pleasant. And I'm like, okay, I'm trying, because I'm typically one that will throw in emojis. I'm doing anything and everything to avoid somebody feeling as if I'm attacking and everything else. Why? Because in person, I've been told numerous times that I'm very intense. I'm intense, I'm direct, and I'm to the point. My emails are written that way. And so to soften that, I intentionally try to bring in these little pleasantries to try and backpedal and not have people feel as if they're always being attacked or I'm just too curt with them because of time. I'm wanting to be clear and I'm wanting to be specific. And in order to do that, I think I come across too often in written form as just being too direct. So I soften it. And so to use AI to say, hey, make this a little bit more polite. So instead of writing an email and I forget to say, hi, Heather, I go
Right.
back and go, hi, Heather,
Yeah.
hope you're having a great day. I need this.
Yeah.
Where I started my email, first of all, saying, I need this.
Send this by 5, period.
I need this by 5. Don't forget. I'm like, oh, okay, back up. Hi, Heather. How are you today? I
Right.
hope your day's going well. I need this by 5. Have a great day.
Yeah.
So it's very helpful to me because I think it's improved my communications. It softens the blow with everything that I'm dealing with. Makes me sound like a better person. I'd like to think I'm a better person, but at least makes me sound like a better person. So yeah, I think this is a great thing. And it's not because I feel my job's threatened that I'm going to be done away with. I think it's
Right.
helping me in my process to be a better communicator and so forth. So yeah, I love this this element that we're bringing up about AI. The other thing I'd say about AI is if you embrace it as a tool, something that's going to enable you to do your job better or quicker or whatever, I think you'll lean into it a lot more. And so I think we need to be embracing this. Would you agree?
I completely agree. I think that it's a solution that is so helpful. And I find that any new technology, it's fun if you just go in and play around with
Yeah.
it and don't take it too seriously. Go in and I've used ChatGPT to help me with my son's AP history homework.
Love it.
And, finding answers faster than us flipping through all the pages of the book. It just helped me in learning to write prompts, seeing how I can get outputs, better guiding the AI. And so I was learning how I can use it professionally by doing homework with my son. And so if you look at it through, how can I just have some fun with this? How can I take my brother's picture and, have it put him in all kinds of funny scenarios because I want to learn how the image generation works.
Yeah.
I'm going to send him on a trip wearing the wrong clothes to go to a cold climate or whatever you're going to do with, to play around with a picture. It helps, it gives you something fun to do, but at the same time, you're learning how the solution works and you're seeing the power in it. It also helps a lot because you can see where it gets tripped up. So I've had situations of kind of leaning on AI to do research, and it will always give you an answer, whether it knows the answer or not.
They're called hallucinations.
And it's given really wrong answers. So it also helps you see how to then go fact check what you get back out of AI, especially, writing an email, that's a different use case. But if you're just going for straight information from a solution, you really do have to learn how to then go fact check.
Oh, I couldn't agree with you more. It's no different than any other person because you have to understand that it's pulling from a library of us.
Exactly.
Our bad information, our biases. And
Right.
so it's basically regurgitating what we as a human race have put out there. And in numerous instances, we're wrong. And what's funny is its interpretation of what we've been saying as a race. Here we are, it's collected since, I think ChatGPT, if I recall correctly, had the internet up to 2021. And that's what it was using as its data set.
Yeah.
And so for 2021, this is the first version that it came out with.
Right.
I think they're up to version 5 now. But the first iteration was pulling from a data set of 2021 and back. So here it comes out and it will make statements that were completely untrue. And you're wondering how. Well, one, it was put into a position where it had to come up with an answer. And so it's like, I can't figure this out. So I'm going to say this. And that's fascinating that it's almost like a little child. I'm caught. What are you doing? And they're not just going to stare at you. They're going to say something. I distinctly remember, just to illustrate my point, this is kind of funny. I'm just bringing it up. When I was younger, I was in a situation where I was at my father's work. We were visiting. And while I was there, I had a hot chocolate, but I'd taken the hot chocolate and put it in the cold cup, Dixie cup with the wax insert.
Oh,
you know how they're
no.
wax lined?
Yes.
And so instead of even having an insulated cup and one that was actually designed for a hot drink, I'm using the Dixie cup.
The self-destructing.
That's right. So the gentleman comes over to me, the employee, and just politely points out, because I'm a young kid, he says, by the way, that cup is for cold drinks. You've got a hot drink in there. It's melting the wax and you're drinking the wax. My response was, oh, I knew that. I meant it to be that way. So I was just caught. Well, that's a hallucination. That's the AI, in essence, coming out of me saying, well, I don't want to be caught wrong. So I'm going to say something, and I'm not going to look like a fool. So, yeah, I meant to do that. And that's what we're trying to avoid with the AI, is putting it in these corners where it has to hallucinate. But anyways, it's all done by prompts. The better you ask the question, and so forth. So I'm going to change topics on us.
Okay.
And you're not going to like this, but we're going to make the most of it.
Uh-oh.
We had a conversation last time where we talked about cursing.
Oh, yes. And you're very anti.
Well, I wouldn't say I'm anti, but this is where we're going to go with the conversation. You also have an opinion on this.
Yes.
So I just wanted to quickly record for the history our opinions on cursing here, because I think this is going to be an interesting conversation. It's very commonplace in our culture, very natural. Obviously, people do it all the time, whether it be personal or professional. I've got a few things that I'd like to share and say, but you have a thought on it, and I'm going to elaborate. I think my audience is going to like this. It's obviously a divergent from the accounting theme, but it's going to have a work application. So hold on.
So interesting. And I do have a point of view on this that I will get to. I just saw on LinkedIn today that someone shared some research that was done about how is the younger generation of job applicants. So this is people, just recent graduates up to maybe 3 or 4 years of experience. How are they showing up to job interviews?
So teens and young 20s.
Yeah, young 20s. How are they showing up? And one of the things that, and it was pointing out the things that they felt were negative representations on job interviews. So there were things like they wouldn't turn on their camera, they weren't dressed appropriately. But one of the things pointed out was cursing on a job interview. And the post that I read shared the data, but then said, well, is all of this actually wrong? And some of it was, a point of view of like, well, yeah, did I tell them they had to have their camera on? And did we? But there are some things that were a little bit common sense. Like one of the questions was, I think it was 19% of applicants had shown up to an interview with one of their parents, a virtual, like a Zoom interview.
Well, I'm sure 5% showed up to the actual company with their parent.
Parent, right.
And then, like 2% had their parents and they were in the car. I mean, I'm sure of that.
Probably, yeah.
Yes.
But cursing was one of the things that had come up a lot. And the question being asked was, is this right or is this wrong? To either, can you gently coach somebody if you're the interviewer and you don't like the language to say, hey, actually, could we kind of change the way that you use your language here? I just thought that was really interesting because it showed such a point of view on the way that it shows up for a first-time interaction.
Yes.
Now, when it's a long time, we have a built relationship. My question that I like to ask people, and I'm curious the point of view of others, is cursing a gender equalizer? So I'm a female. I have worked for the majority of my career in very male-dominated industries. So I'm in technology. I have been in, luckily Canopy is an exception to this rule, but I have been in a number of companies where I am the only female in any kind of boardroom situation. And so it's made me wonder, is cursing a gender equalizer? If I curse more in the workplace, will it put me mentally more on the level with my male peers?
Fascinating.
I don't really know the answer because I've been floating this with a lot of people.
Have you tried it?
I have tried it, but mostly people just laugh at me and think that I'm just doing a social experiment on them, which I am doing. So I'm just getting caught. But I've asked it a lot, and even more so during our total virtual times of now I'm the only woman on the Zoom where it's hard to break in. Is this the place where I need to be more assertive as a female? Yeah. So I've had female friends who I've worked with who've said, Heather, you're crazy. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And others who've said, yeah, we should try that. So it's a good question. And I think it's something you can definitely try, depending on the way people use language in your workplace anyway. And there are some places that won't use any kind of cursing. So probably you would stand out in the wrong way. But then also peer-to-peer. It's not something I would advocate for in a client communication, but in your coworker peer-to-peer communication.
Yeah. So,
I'm curious about it.
So this is fascinating. We could really talk on this for quite a bit of time. One, I have some very extensive opinions on this. Profanity, what's the definition of it? I find
Right.
that it's interesting. Different people define it one way or another. Secondly, where its usefulness is. Some people use it as placeholders within their vocabulary, like an or an It's just actually how they speak, and they use that as a way of thinking. Some people use it as adjectives to try and enunciate things, draw attention to things, emphasize things. And others, it's interesting, they do it more as a posturing type thing. They're trying to, I'm confident, I'm bold, I'm going to be assertive, and male or female, it's just they're trying to kind of pound their chest, if you will. Look at
Right.
me, I'm being very, very confident right now because I dare say this in this way. And so it's very interesting, the context in which it's used. But here are some of the things that I'm fascinated by. One, when you look at the definition of what is swearing, it varies. Some people, certain words aren't swearing. They'll say, well, it's in the Bible. I
Right.
can say it, it's in the
Right.
Bible. And it's like, no. So the way that I've chosen over the years, like numerous years, decades, to define this, especially as raising my children, is it's words that are used out of their context. Meaning,
That's interesting.
meaning if you consider a lot of swear words, they don't originally have the definition for which they're being used. So Webster's might actually come out later on saying it has this definition, but initially it wasn't how the word was intended, and therefore people are using it out of context. And so that's one of the things that's fascinating. So in other words, words have definitions, and you can use them properly, and they're not by definition swearing because you're using it correctly. But then you have it where you have very, let's say, technical terms, and then you have those more germane terms that are used in society rather than being doctrinal. Flatulate, right? I can say I flatulate, I defecate. And
Right.
people are like, who says defecate anymore?
Right.
But you can clearly use a word to say you're defecating, and it's totally appropriate. But then that's not the use of the word in the sentence. In
Yes.
conversation, no one's talking about defecating, but yet they're using the word profusely. So my point is it's fascinating as a topic to kind of dive into all this. So let's talk about it professionally. Professionally, why is it done? Why is it used? You can make an argument as to why socially it's used, but professionally, why when trying to get a sale, why when trying to work with a client, why when working with coworkers, would someone want to use something that can be divisive, that can be shocking?
Yeah.
And that's what I don't understand. Do you have an opinion on that?
I think it's really fascinating, especially I think with coworkers, there's this level of relationship where you kind of know people and you accept them for you're a little rougher around the edges or you're a little more sensitive, and you know these people and you know how they will react to things. I think when you're working with clients, it's harder to get to that relationship comfort level. And it also could really go awry. I mean, there are people with very strong opinions about cursing in the workplace.
Yeah.
And it can be pretty shocking for some people if it's not an environment that you're accustomed to.
Yeah. So to take this another level, in a business context, there was a time in my career where I worked at in the prison system, Utah Correctional Industries, and in working in the prison system, I worked with the felons and I employed them to do work. Rather than getting into all the details, one of the rules in the work floor, in the environment where we were, so we had all the felons, I'm talking murderers, rapists, pedophiles, white-collar crime, everything, violent offenders. So they're all working on this floor, and I have one or two guards, and we're working. The rule on the floor was you may not use a swear word at all because we were in a public setting. And so if anyone was to profane, to the simplest of profanities, they were fired. Now, you have to understand, in the prison system, while incarcerated, this is a privilege. And you're earning a very small income that allows you to pay for on commissary things that would be a treat. And so they didn't want to lose this privilege. I had gentlemen that were as vile as you can imagine, not saying a single swear word for an 8-hour shift. The moment they walked out the front door to leave that facility and go out into the yard or go into the hallway, they swore like drunken sailors.
Had to get it out.
Oh man, they could make your blood boil, but they could bite their tongues when they needed to. So when I go into settings and I work especially with youth, and they'll say, I can't control it, this is just the way I talk. I'm like, you are kidding me. because I've been with far worse individuals than you that have far more control than you do, and I don't accept that you don't know how to do it otherwise. And I would dare say, and somebody's obviously going to say, no, I talk in front of my parents this way. And I know parents who speak this way in front of their kids, so I'm not in any way trying to be judging, but my point is to suggest that you can't, I think is a shortcoming on assuming you don't have self-control.
Well, and saying I can't, like kind of moving away from just this topic to general, is basically, in my opinion, saying I won't.
Yes.
I think that our minds are so powerful. We can make decisions about these amazing feats we're going to accomplish in our lives. And maybe some of them are not realistic, but some of them, if you really reach for the stars, I mean, the current owner of the Utah Jazz years ago said, I'm going to own an NBA team one day. And I mean, he did it, and not very many of the rest of us could. So
Yes.
I think that the mind is so powerful. And when we say I can't, we're just saying I won't. And it just is someone saying, I'm not even going to try.
Yep. Now, in defense of swearing, for I do feel it does have its place. Although I'm known for not swearing, I don't profane. I do feel it has its case. When I see it, especially in very, very troubling situations, like I'll just use war movies as an example, I would anticipate that in a very warlike situation, I would be profaning. I mean, that is just the worst of human conditions, and I would expect that the stresses involved there would justify that kind of communication. So in no way am I trying to say it doesn't have its place, nor am I trying to suggest I'm better than anyone else. I just don't find the need for it, and I've been doing this now for 40 years that it's kind of hard to break the thing. My kids, we'll end on this. My kids jokingly are always looking for me to swear. They're expecting me to swear.
I'm pulling for them.
Oh, they're pulling. They want it, and they're all wanting to be there. I have said something to my daughter where they say I've used my swear card once. However,
oh wow,
oh yeah, and it's a nice little story in our family now.
Then.
But the point is I said the telltale indicator that I am going senile or experiencing dementia is when my filter is stopped and I start profaning. So you'll start knowing that mentally my demise has begun because I've begun profaning. And anyways, that's a good signal.
Not everybody gets that.
That's right. So I just basically tell my kids, hasn't started yet. I'm still all here. We're good. So it's kind of funny. Anyways, kind of an off topic. I don't know if my listeners even cared for it, but I thought this was going to be kind of interesting because I knew you had some thoughts on it. Coincidentally, just on a total side note, had a guest on the podcast just a few episodes ago. We somehow got off. I think he asked specifically, do you mind if we swear on the show? Or, I can't remember how he posed the question. Regardless, I said, no, coincidentally, I've had nearly 300 episodes and I've never had anyone swear. And he goes, wow, that's kind of interesting. And I go, well, yeah, it's just the nature of the call. And I think people just get the vibe and we're totally fine. He actually swore on the show. It was kind of funny. I was like, well, I thought we had this conversation before we began. And so he swears on it. And he didn't notice. That's my point. He did not realize what he had done because he just said it in passing. And it was just him speaking, which is totally fine. I don't want to sound as if I'm judging here. I'm not judging.
But it's
I have
just
plenty of people that I work with that swear. It's totally fine. But the point is he just said it. And I was like, how ironic of all the shows, he does it on this one.
He would do it on that one.
And this was the conversation before the episode was being recorded. So it was kind of an off mic kind of conversation.
So funny.
It was I couldn't call him on it because it wasn't anything anyone would have context for, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I just whatever. And I didn't say anything to him afterwards because I don't even know that he knew he swore.
Oh, how funny.
Yeah. So, yeah, totally funny. Anyways, I just thought it'd be a fun conversation only because I knew that you and I had this discussion beforehand. I thought you would enjoy.
Yeah.
So do you have any final thoughts on it?
Well, you know what? I think your guest did the right thing and said, what's your comfort level? I think one of the big things, whether on the topic of cussing or just basically client interactions overall, communication is so key.
Yes.
And if you just ask someone, is this the way that we can work together? And they say yes or no, you've put such a clear line in the sand with that person, and you won't ever accidentally step over it. Or if you do, you know that you need to apologize immediately and take it back, right? In either the methods of communications or the way that you put things together for them, or just your patterns of speech with a person. Communication is just so key.
Yeah, communication, I think, is very underrated. I think we need to actually consider what we're saying. Words have meaning, and I think communication helps us better understand one another. But just to be clear, I'm fine with, I'm not taking offense if people swear. I'm just shocked when they start doing it. I'm like, what's going on here? Why are they doing this? And I'm not referring to just the occasional word here or there. I'm talking about where it becomes like this constant way of, in every sentence, they're trying to clearly communicate something to me here. What is it that's going on? I just maybe am overly analyzing it, but I do. All right, so here's where I'd like to go with this. Okay. Wonderful conversation. I'm going to wrap things up here. As it relates to the conversation, I'm going to come back to you for a closing thought. However, with regards to the audience, I'd like to point out to you that with Canopy, one of the things that you can take advantage of is in the episode description, you're going to find information out about their library of CPE available content. You can go there, get the information you need. For those of you who are looking for CPE, definitely go there and take advantage of their free resources that you can actually access. In addition, you'll find in the episode description a number of other free resources that we provide here at Universal. These are going to be actually found as they relate to ebooks, courses, white papers, just a variety of things to assist you as you're working on your business that I'd strongly recommend that you go take a look at and see which apply to you currently today. In addition to that, I'd like to summarize kind of our conversation and draw out some highlights. One, I really appreciated our discussion about branding. I think it's something that's very common. I've gone through branding phases, trying to reinvent who we are as a school, as a company, what we're trying to represent. And over the 25 years that I've been here, I've seen various iterations of what universal accounting is, and I really do like who we are, but it's clearly a messaging. How do we actually use different things to communicate subtly and directly who we are, what we do, how we service, and what people benefit from. So branding was a phenomenal conversation. We got into marketing, how you actually take it to market, how you communicate that, focusing, for example, more on the benefits that the client is receiving rather than the features, the work that we're doing. I thought that was an essential part of the conversation. Just a lot of really good elements to what it was that we were going through, so I appreciate that. The AI conversation about how it's being integrated into various platforms, Canopy being one of those, how we can utilize it to not be threatened, but rather use it as an assistant. The email example of us trying to use it for tone so that we could actually communicate more effectively in the manner in which we would like to be heard. Very good conversation. Clearly, profanity, cursing, that's got to be a highlight. I enjoy that. I've had this conversation with many people. Literally, I was having this when I was a teenager, having it as a conversation where people were just curious, and it was just a fun topic. I've had this with my son. I've had this with others, and it's just people thinking, Roger, you overanalyze things. Roger, you're overthinking this. Well, there you go. I overthought it.
Well, I'll share later the story of my friend when he was a Marine who got his entire, what is your
platoon?
Platoon is, or is it I don't know.
Battalion.
His whole group of other Marines to stop cussing.
There you go. That's an accomplishment.
It's a fun story.
Yeah, I can't say I know many veterans that don't swear. So there you go. And they have every right in the world, in my opinion, to swear.
They 100% do, but they made it fun.
Yep. Well, I've had fun with it. The word of the day, we've actually had a lot of fun with this. All right. So with all that being said, this has been a wonderful conversation. Therefore, do you have a closing thought?
Just thank you so much. And going back to branding, one thing we didn't talk about that I do think is something that in the accounting profession, everybody should also consider is the way that you brand your firm is extremely important. But because it's such a service industry providing really one-on-one specific services with clients, it's also really important to consider your personal branding, which is where the cursing conversation does really come into play, is how am I representing myself as an individual human to my clients, which is really, really key.
Oh, yeah. Well, it just depends on what your messaging needs to be for the audience that you're trying to appeal to.
Absolutely. It's the same thing as doing branding and marketing for your company, but really considering that I am a part of this. And the way that I come across, if I want to brand myself as a laid-back person who's really casual, it's weird if I show up to a meeting, whether on Zoom or in person, in a 3-piece suit.
Oh, yeah.
If I want to be, just considering that the way that you represent yourself as a person is very seen and is just as important as the way, well, it ties in with the way you represent your company.
Yeah, and it's intent. It's what's the intent you're trying to do. So I know of individuals that cater to the construction industry. Clearly, they wouldn't show up to a site like I'm dressed. They'd be more inclined to go with work boots, with maybe the
Right.
skittle toe. They're going to want to fit in more with the client so that they actually feel as if they have something in common. Similarly, I know of someone that has some sexual tonations to the marketing that they do. They speak of people having orgasmic experiences with their clients. I mean, it's just how they leverage and wish to portray themselves as a relatable thing to the client they're trying to appeal to. So I think this
Right.
is all very appropriate.
Yeah.
So it's just being more conscious and intentional, deliberate in the marketing that you're doing. So
Absolutely.
excellent point as it relates to marketing. All right. So with that being said, here's how I'm going to wrap this up. Obviously, if you haven't already subscribed to the podcast, I invite you to do so. This is something that we want to do each and every week, give you access to the experts, things that they're sharing as it relates to our business, how we can make and build the premier accounting firm in our area. In addition to liking the podcast, I encourage you to set your notifications. That way you'll get that reminder each and every week when we release a new episode. In addition, I want to invite you to GrowCon. GrowCon is an amazing event. It's a conference for owners of bookkeeping, accounting, and tax businesses. It's where you want to be. Why? Because we put on the stage individuals that are helping us understand what we can be doing now to work on our business, and more importantly, also meet with the peers, those individuals like you who are running successful businesses, people that are doing what you're trying to accomplish, that are ahead of you in the game, and what you can learn from them, collaborations and friendships that you can make. In addition, you've got other individuals that are aspiring to do what you've already accomplished, that you can share your insights and help those in the profession actually grow their businesses as well. Also at Universal, we're here to help you. So at the conference, you get to meet our team, our staff, and see those individuals that are committed to helping you be in business for yourself, but not by yourself with Universal Accounting. Now, with all that being said, I also want to invite you to those free resources. Those can be found at universalaccounting.com, as well as podcast playlists. You can go there in the website and actually find in the navigation the highlights that we've put together, playlists that you can binge listen based on the current needs that you have. So clearly go to universalaccounting.com and find those there. As it relates to these topics and other things that we've been discussing, if you'd like to apply these principles in your business or learn more, feel free to reach out to us. You can contact us by going to universalaccountingschool.com, or you can give us a call at 801-265-3777. And always remember this, if it's about accounting, it is Universal. Take care and have a great day.